Good morning. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. I am very pleased and excited to receive the endorsement of Iowans for Tax Relief. I've had the honor of working with this organization for many years. It is the largest taxpayer organization in the state of Iowa. And back when I was governor, we worked together to get spending limitations into the law, the 99% December spending limitation, and that helped us get our state's fiscal house in order. We balanced the budget on generally accepted accounting principles, and as a result, we ended up building up a large surplus by controlling spending, and then we cut taxes. And we worked together to eliminate inheritance tax for children and grandchildren, index the Iowa income tax to inflation, and also cut the income tax across the board. When I became governor, the top rate was 13%, and when I left office, the top rate had been reduced to 8.98%. No progress has been made on reducing income tax rates since I left office. And even worse, on the spending side, since I left office, the legislature and the governor have disregarded the 99% spending limitation. In fact, since Culver became governor, in the last 4 years, the governor and the legislature have circumvented the 99% spending limitation 133 times by putting notwithstanding language in appropriation bills. When I get to be governor again, I will enforce the spending limit. I will first require that we put together a 5-year strategic budget plan for the state, and that the legislature pass a biennial 2-year budget. I will veto a 1-year budget. I will insist that we have a 2-year budget, and that any appropriation bill that circumvents the 99% spending limitation will also be vetoed. I enforced the spending limitation from the time it passed in '92 until I left office. I will again do that. I also support Iowans for Tax Relief's initiative to put in the Constitution the 99% spending limitation so the legislature can never again circumvent this important part of our law. Also, federal deductibility has always been an important issue for Iowans for Tax Relief. No tax on a tax. This is more important now than ever because at the end of 2010, we're going to have the Obama tax increase that will let expire the tax cut under Bush. This is going to be a massive federal tax increase on Iowa taxpayers. But at least in Iowa, because of federal deductibility, it will be deductible. If federal deductibility were lost, it would be a double whammy. State tax increase on top of federal tax increase. We can't let that happen. And so I am very pleased and very honored to receive the endorsement of this large taxpayer organization. I was one of 5 candidates that appeared at their forum. It was a very enthusiastic response, and I'm just excited to receive the endorsement. And I'm proud now to introduce the president of Iowans for Tax Relief, Ed Fahler Jr. I remember working with his dad and also with Dave Stanley, but Ed Fahler Jr. is now the president, is doing a great job, and I'm proud to introduce Ed Fahler Jr., president of Iowans for Tax Relief.
Well, thank you all for being here. I'm here representing Iowans for Tax Relief PAC today, but I'm also doing something that is unprecedented in our history. We have not ever endorsed a candidate in a primary for governor, Democrat, Republican. We haven't taken that step. But the status quo isn't serving us. We have to do something different. We're an organization that's never been about the status quo. We have recruited candidates against Republican members of the Iowa legislature who frankly were no friends of the taxpayer. And we took them out because that was in the best interest of Iowa taxpayers. The status quo doesn't work. And this year, you'll see our PAC support more Democrats that are pro-business, pro-family, pro-taxpayer candidates who believe in doing the right things and recently have stood up to their own party. And we're going to support them in ways we haven't before because the status quo is failing. And that's why we need to move forward. The stakes are at an all-time high. And we need someone who's ready to hit the ground running and lead this state in the right direction. There is no better candidate than Terry Branstad to do exactly that. And it's time for Iowans to say to Governor Culver that we don't require your services any longer. He's not only failed you, He's not only failed the people paying the bills right now in the state of Iowa, but he's failed the next generation. That's not leadership. It doesn't look anything like leadership. That's being a politician. A politician who simply looks to balance the budget 1 year at a time and play political games to do it. And he's done it by violating Iowa's 99% expenditure limitation. It's unconscionable that he doesn't share our Iowa values. They're really simple. That you can't spend more than you earn. But Chet Culver doesn't understand that because he's a politician first. He's grown government. Now, he can play smoke and mirrors accounting with you all day long and explain to you how he hasn't, but he has. And he's done it in an unsustainable manner. Off one-time monies, off savings, off of rainy day funds, Chet Culver has built a bigger and bigger government that are being solved with one-time money. And additionally, he's passed on generational debt. He's bonded to solve short-term problems. Problems will only get us through another budget year. And he's passed it on to children who are in our elementary schools in Ankeny right now, who will have to bear the burden for Chet Culver's horrible mismanagement. And that's not acceptable. It's time for the voters of Iowa to say, Chet Culver, we don't require your services any longer. And that's what we want to help happen. We are in trying times. And trying times dictate aggressive actions, and that's why I'm here today. But we need a certain kind of leader in these trying times. James Freeman Clark said, a politician thinks of the next election. A statesman thinks of the next generation. And Terry Branstad has proven himself time and time again a statesman. And that's what Iowa needs. We haven't always agreed with Terry Branstad, but he's a learner. He's a listener. And at the end of the day, he knows that he's a servant of the people, something that's completely out of whack in government right now. But he understands he's your servant, operating your government on behalf of you. You don't answer to him. That's what a statesman does. And there's one clear thing in trying times like this, that at the end of the day, the end results are what counts. And no one, no governor before or since, has done as much as Terry Branstad to reduce the tax burden on Iowa families and small businesses. It's not arguable. He proposed, moved forward, and signed legislation for the largest tax cut in Iowa's history, with the 10% across-the-board income tax cut. Now I'm going to tell a story on him. He wasn't happy about that, but he signed it anyway. Now why wasn't he happy? Because Governor Branstad proposed a 15% across-the-board tax cut. What did he do as a statesman? He pushed the legislation through the Iowa legislature, made sure it was passed, and he signed legislation, which was the single largest tax cut in Iowa's history. He reflects our Iowa values. He eliminated the inheritance tax for children and grandchildren. That is so important. Terry Branstad, again, shares our Iowa values. He understands it isn't an Iowa value for government to profit from your death. It's not an Iowa value. It's not a human value, I would suggest, but certainly not an Iowa value. And it would paralyze small farms, passing them on through families, small businesses, people who spent their lifetime building. Terry Branstad understood that. He pushed that legislation and he signed it. Also indexed income taxes, which a lot of people don't understand. But simply what that did, it says, you know what, just because there's inflation, you're not going to get pushed into a higher tax bracket. Again, a common sense Iowa value. And he's become a champion on federal deductibility, so it's without reservation. As president of Iowans for Tax Relief, the largest taxpayer group in the state of Iowa, that I'm here to endorse Terry Branstad for governor. Because I'll tell you what, we are in desperate times, and they need proven leadership. And all the things I've told you, they aren't as important as what Terry Branstad is going to do next. It's going to lead Iowa to a recovery. And I'll tell you what, I might be endorsing him on behalf of our PAC, but I'll tell you something else. I'm Ed Failer, and I'm voting for Terry Branstad on June 8th. And I ask you to join me. Because I'll tell you what, I have 4 kids, 15 to 19, and I want them to have job opportunities in Iowa. I want them to share the things that I was allowed to have, the opportunities I was able to have in my life. And the only way that happens, if Governor Branstad gets through this primary, because he's the only candidate who can do 2 things. Beat Chet Culver, which has to happen, no matter what. And secondly, lead a change of face, a change of direction of this state, and create a pro-family, pro-small business, pro-taxpayer agenda in the state of Iowa, drive it through our legislature, create jobs, and take back Iowa to its greatness that it deserves to be, instead of settling for what we've been settling.